And good evening. This is Tracy Sinclair with Alaska's News Source. We are just waiting on the arrival of Governor Dunleavy and Senator Sullivan. We did get word that they will be delayed by about 5 minutes, so this will hopefully start soon, and we will be able to take you live to this press conference as we talk about some renewable energy. Once again, we are waiting for the arrival of Governor Dunleavy and Senator Sullivan, and the expectation is that they will be discussing renewable energy. As I said, we're just kind of waiting. We've been given a heads up that they are delayed by about 5 minutes. So we had already begun our stream, so we will just keep it here and let you follow along as soon as our lawmakers arrive. And let's head downtown to the press conference with Governor Mike Dunleavy. He has just arrived.
You guys getting used to the sun?
Yeah. No.
Oh, we were in Juneau. It was beautiful down in Juneau for days and days, except for that flood, obviously. But anyway, we're the senator. We're waiting for the senator, and we'll get going here. But we appreciate you guys coming.
Seems we're always waiting for senators.
You're always waiting for senators, congressman.
Am I keeping you waiting?
You missed it. It was an inside joke here, Washington joke here. But anyway, thanks for being here, folks, today. We have a real, we think it's a real special treat. We've got a number of congressmen from different states that are coming to Alaska to really get to understand Alaska better, to see where the similarities are with issues that they're dealing with in their states, as well as what the differences are. And we have Congressman Pete Stauber here from Minnesota, Tom Tiffany from Wisconsin, and Russ Fulcher from Idaho. And different states compared to Alaska, but similar interests and similar needs. And of course, we have our Senator Dan Sullivan here who's also going to speak. But we have been having conversations. We always have conversations with Dan and Lisa, constantly having conversations with friends, old friends of Don Young in Congress that go back many, many years. And we came to understand that we have similar issues in which we believe that opportunities are being destroyed by the current administration in Washington. The senator, and he can talk about this, and I want to thank him for that, but it was his concept to come up with a running list of what we believe are sanctions against Alaska, sanctions preventing our ability to develop the resources here in the state of Alaska. Obviously some of this, or most of this, is on federal land, but nonetheless, these are opportunities that could solve a lot of our problems. If we're allowed to develop our resources across this country, we are the solution to many problems that we have in this country. One of the things we talked about is, what is the cost to America? What is the cost to Alaska when a particular project or a particular play, whether it be oil, mining, even timber, is shut down? What is that cost, lost opportunity? We estimate that's in the billions, if not close to $1 trillion. And we're doing some work to actually really come up with some figures on that. That's opportunity in jobs. That's opportunity in lost security overseas when we're depending upon places like China for our minerals. That's lost wealth for our people here in Alaska. One of the things that I think people find fascinating is there was a study done on what were the impacts of oil and mining in Alaska in the last 40, 50 years. And what we found out is the life expectancy in many cases of our folks that live in rural Alaska has been extended greatly, in some cases upwards of 14 years. There's no subgroup like that we can find anywhere else. So when people talk about mining, when they talk about oil, that it destroys the environment, overseas it probably does. Overseas, where we don't have the environmental regulations that we have here in Alaska, it probably does. Props up dictators in some cases. We have to go talk to the Iranians or the Saudis or the Venezuelans or others for more oil production. We have to look at other countries for mining when we have the solutions right here. So, very honored to have these folks come up. They're friends of Alaska. They're really Americans, to be honest with you, in trying to solve some of these issues. But we've got an administration currently in Washington that is not friendly to Alaska when it comes to our resource plays. And I'll end up by saying this before I turn it over to Representative Stauber. Alaska is unique. We're the only state that in 1959 we were granted statehood if we developed our resources to pay our way. They thought we were too small population-wise to pay for it through income tax or sales tax. And we have the solutions to a lot of these problems. We have the solutions to our $30-some trillion debt by creating new wealth as opposed to printing money or taking money from Americans. And so we see tremendous opportunity. These folks will talk about that. The Senator will talk about that. But we're just honored to have them here in the state of Alaska. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Congressman Pete Stauber from Minnesota, and appreciate you coming up.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Governor. Senator Sullivan, it's great to be in your great state with my colleagues, Russ Fulcher from Idaho and Tom Tiffany from the great state of Wisconsin. My name is Pete Stauber. I represent Minnesota's 8th Congressional District. That's Northeast Minnesota. If you know Minnesota, it's the northeast part is the Iron Range, where we mine iron ore that makes 82% of this nation's steel. It's a strategic national security interest, obviously. And so what's happening is in that same Iron Range area, there's a complex called the Duluth Complex, the biggest copper nickel find in the world. And I'll repeat that, the biggest copper nickel find in the world. And this administration has shut it down. Does not make sense when we need those critical minerals, copper, nickel, cobalt, and the other platinum group metals. And so as we look at that opportunity, I'm going to go back to my time serving with Representative Don Young, the champion for Alaska in the House of Representatives. When he talked, both sides of the aisle listened. There was no better champion than Don Young. I had the privilege to serve with him. And he introduced me to many people prior to his death up here in Alaska. The resources that Alaska has is through the roof. And I say there's only one state that has more mineral wealth than the great state of Minnesota, and that's right here in Alaska. And what this administration has done to Alaska, 66 sanctions. Are you kidding me? There's more sanctions. This administration has more sanctions on this great state of Alaska than it does Iran. And guess what? Because this administration took the sanctions off Iran, now they've got $90 billion to terrorize the world. We can do it right here in Alaska. You can do it in Minnesota. You can do it in Idaho. You can do it in Nevada. You can do it in Arizona. You can do it in Montana. You can do it in Washington. You can do it in Pennsylvania. Better than anybody in the world. Our labor and our environmental standards are the best in the world. We should lead. And I'm telling you, what this administration has done to Alaska is darn near criminal. Alaska, you deserve better. And that's why the Natural Resource Chair, Bruce Westerman, allowed our committee, Energy and Minerals Resource Committee, to come up here and look at the opportunities lost because of politics. You have to have the political will. If we have the political will, we can solve a lot of America's problems. Alaska is on the front force of that. You have such an opportunity. And as we talk about mining and oil extraction and timber harvesting, Minnesota and Alaska are sharing the same concerns from this administration. And I'm here to tell you that as long as I have the privilege of serving Minnesota's 8th Congressional District, Alaska will have a great friend in the House of Representatives. So with that being said, I want to just quickly talk about the Alaska's Right to Produce Act that we passed out of the House on May 1st in a bipartisan fashion. Senator Sullivan and Murkowski have the companion bill waiting in the Senate, and Chuck Schumer won't bring it up. What a travesty. And so with that being said, I want to introduce my good friend and your great senator, Senator Sullivan.
Thank you. Thank you, Congressman. Well, it is a real honor to be here with the governor. As always, we work on these issues a lot together, but this strong group of congressmen, and I want to thank in particular Congressman Pete Stauber, who, by the way, is a subcommittee chair on the Natural Resources Committee and has been looking out for our state in a huge way. And we have a lot of similar interests, as he mentioned. So we help them, they help us, and this is the way folks in the Congress who care about natural resources and American energy and American strength work together. So I want to thank them. You know, we know that Alaska resource development is super important to our economy, but it's important to America. We are important to America, which is why you have this great group of congressmen up. They're going to be heading up to the North Slope with us tomorrow to take a look, see all the great potential that we have in our great state. Now, as some of you know, I carry this chart around me everywhere. This depicts, now we're at 66 executive orders and actions singularly targeting Alaska. Okay, this isn't talking about an EPA rule that hurts everybody. These are orders and actions that came from the Biden-Harris administration singularly focused on us. Okay? It is an outrage. I've literally handed this to the President of the United States, Joe Biden, in the Oval Office and said, Mr. President, respectfully, this war on Alaska has to end. It's wrong. You know it, sir. And it's driven by the radical enviros who are your allies. And so we have been trying to get this administration to lighten up. If you look at the back, by the way, day one, the Biden inauguration day, okay, they issued 10. They issued 10. We are the target. And so it's not just about what they're doing, but recently it's also about what they're not doing. Now, I think you guys have a letter that I just sent today to the BLM director. This is Tracy Stone Manning. This should scare every single Alaskan. What's the point of this letter? Tracy Stone Manning, the BLM director who was up here a couple weeks ago, won't meet with me, won't meet with the governor, won't meet with elected officials. Trust me, we tried. She's our landlord, you guys. She's our landlord. She's also, if you look at her background, I won't go into it, she's an eco-terrorist. Just go check it out, what she's done in her past. But she has told our Commissioner DNR, Senator Murkowski, our staffs, that they were getting ready to revoke what was called Public Land 5150, okay? Public Land Order, PLO 5150. This might sound like a technical issue, but bear with me. We believe that in the 2004 Alaska Land Transfer Act, this is required. What this would do, if BLM revokes this, is it gives the land under TAPS in other places back to the state of Alaska. Okay? We've been waiting for this for a long time. She committed to do this when they were going to issue the Central Yukon Management Plan, which they have now issued. Guess what happened? It didn't have this revocation of PLO 5150. Okay? That's a huge deal. A, she committed to doing it to us, for us. B, she didn't. What happened right around the same time? Many of the radical environmental groups that she is allied with petitioned the Department of Interior to start the EIS process to dismantle TAPS. Let me repeat that, Alaskans. This is a group that is saying they want the Department of Interior, because they still control the land under TAPS, to start to dismantle TAPS. Okay? This would be an unmitigated disaster for our state, an unmitigated disaster for our country. And these groups want to do it. Just go look at their press releases. So, do I think it's a coincidence that she said, I'm not going to do this at the last minute, and then her allies in these groups said, we want to petition you, Department of Interior, to dismantle TAPS? I don't think it's a coincidence at all. So I've requested, take a look at the letter that I sent to her today, a very broad oversight from Congress of all the communications she and anyone else in the Department of Interior has had with these groups. And are you coordinating on the petition that they've now filed to get rid of one of the most important energy pieces of infrastructure in America that would crush our economy and undermine American energy security? So I hope you're right about that. It's an important issue. I've asked for her to respond to my letter within 1 month, and we're going to see. We're going to see. But like I said, it's not just actions are taken, 66, it's actions like this one that she promised Alaskans she would take, revoking 5150, that she's now not taking. And we want to know why. So with that, Kara Moriarty, who does a great job for our energy industry here in Alaska. Kara.
Well, thank you, Governor, Senator Sullivan, Representative Stauber, our other distinguished guests, for all of you joining AOGA today. Just a little facts and figures about the oil and gas industry. Nationally, almost 11 million jobs are supported by the oil and gas industry. Here in Alaska, for every direct job that our industry employs, another 15 jobs are created throughout the state of Alaska. Every dollar in wages generated by that direct industry job generates another $4 in wages across the state. Over 70,000 Alaskan jobs are created by our industry, and we purchase goods and services with over 1,000 Alaskan businesses. These facts are why economic reports consistently say that the oil and gas industry produces the highest economic impact of any other sector in Alaska. But producing more oil and gas does not just generate more jobs and wages in the state. The more we produce, the more money is deposited directly into the permanent fund and into the state treasury to support dividends and state services. But as the senator and others have mentioned, the development of our resources is not only critical to Alaska's economy, but more oil and gas is necessary to meet the energy demands across the world. In fact, the demand for U.S. petroleum reached 20 million barrels per day in 2023. Globally, oil and gas is projected to fill more than 50% of the world's energy needs in 2050. And we have so much momentum in Alaska right now. Even with these 66 executive orders, oil companies are expected to spend $10 billion in the next few years that will create significant new oil production. This is why Alaskan contractors are saying they are busier than they've been in decades. But like any business, we need strong fiscal and regulatory policies to maintain this investment climate. That's why these policies that they're talking about being put forward in DC and are always constantly mentioned in Alaska would halt this progress. You heard about the attempts to issue a new EIS to dismantle the pipeline. We have an MPRA rule that would halt the forward progress that we have. We have a new plan from the BLM to create more special areas to lock up more of Alaska. I think that would be your 67th on the list, Senator. And we hear constant calls for more taxation from Juneau. But thankfully, we have leaders here today who are committed to do just the opposite. Leaders like Governor Dunleavy, Senator Sullivan, and the congressmen here and the members of the House Natural Resources Committee. They know we need access. They know we need stability. They know we need common sense regulations, and they know that increasing taxes will not lead to more oil production. They are committed to fighting for a predictable business climate. And we are grateful that our out-of-state guests from Wisconsin, Idaho, and Minnesota and their great staff are making the trek to the North Slope tomorrow to hear directly from stakeholders, something that this administration does not do. They're going to hear directly from stakeholders and to witness firsthand the gold standard in resource development and how we do it here in Alaska. So I want to thank you all for coming to Aoga today. Thank you, Governor, for the invitation to host this here. It's an honor to have you all here. But most importantly, I want to thank all of the gentlemen behind me for supporting Alaskans who rely on a successful oil and gas industry. So with that, I'll turn it over to the Governor for Q&A.
Go ahead. So we're going to have Grant field questions and just direct your questions to whoever you want to have answered.
All right, we'll start with Steve Kirch with Alaska's News Source.
Yeah, Steve, Alaska's News Source. This is for the Governor Dunleavy and Senator Sullivan. Now, conservation groups who have supported some of these BLM decisions have said that, far as opportunity goes, they don't believe in that because groups have not shown interest in, like, say, Ambler Road and say, far as mining or saying doing resource development out there. What do you say to that, to those groups who say, well, there was no interest out there to begin with?
It's not true. It's just simply not true. The Ambler Road was killed once again by the federal government, temporarily, we hope. ANWR was a bill in 2017 that many of these folks worked on that said that there must be 2 lease sales. One's coming up here in December, I believe, as well. When you send the message, Senator and I can give you a perfect example. When you send a message to the investment world that you go ahead and bid on a lease, but we're going to do everything we can to shut it down, that sends a chill up the spine of investors and destroys opportunities. We would be going over to we'd be going over to Japan to talk about the our Alaska gas line concept to the Japanese, and the Japanese would say to us, which side of the Biden administration are we talking to? Because when John Kerry comes in here, he says no gas. When Rahm Emanuel's talking about it, he's talking about getting gas and helping with the pipeline. So, no, I don't agree with that at all. Let's test that theory. Let's test that theory. Put a moratorium on these 66 sanctions that we have against this. Give us a couple years. This place will be booming because there will be interest. A lot of investors want to invest in America because it's a safe place in many respects to invest. A lot of investors want to invest in America because we have the most stringent environmental regulations there are in the world. But they're forced by this administration to go to China. They're forced by this administration to go to other third world dictatorships to do business because it's easier to do business there in many respects. So I think that's just a bunch of crap, to be honest with you. Senator?
Well, and I would agree with the governor, but I would follow up with one other point. There's no doubt that these radical far-left environmental groups come to the administration and say, we'll make it harder, right? So the governor has given a couple examples. We passed in the law, 2017, Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Section 1 was about tax cuts and jobs. Section 2 was about ANWR. That was the whole bill. We finally got it done. A 40-year quest by so many Alaskans. By the way, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, that was not a partisan issue in our great state. So there's one lease sale that already happens during the Trump administration. The Biden administration comes out, Secretary Holland says, it wasn't good enough consultation, we're going to cancel that one. Say what? It says shall, right? Senator Murkowski and I wrote the law. Okay, there's going to be a lease sale supposed to be at the end of this year. We'll see if they do it. I'm pretty much betting they won't even do it. They're not going to do it. They're just going to ignore the law. Here's where else they ignore the law. The NPRA, National Petroleum Reserve of Alaska, set aside by Congress for oil and gas development. Okay, we got Willow done. By the way, the Trump administration got Willow done. We went in to press the president, Biden, to not screw us on that one, too. Miraculously, that was the one issue on this chart that didn't happen because he knew he would have lost legally. And he knew it's in one thing I said to him in the meeting we had when I gave him this chart, Mr. President, you just lifted sanctions on Venezuela. 100,000 barrels a day. They're a terrorist state. They have a production profile in terms of pollution that is 20 times with an X, more polluting than Alaska. And you're not going to help us, you're not going to reapprove the Willow project that will help Alaskans and Americans? That's incomprehensible. But what they do on NPRA, they've taken pretty much the whole thing off the table. You have businesses now that have valid leases in NPRA in Alaska that are suing the Biden administration. So you can't do this. Ambler, as the governor said, it's the same thing. We did a 7-year EIS, started with Obama, ended with Trump, $10 million, and these guys come in and they said, we're going to reverse it. So we're going to fight it. So does that make investing more difficult? It does. There's no doubt about it. And that's their goal, right? That's their goal. What we want is an investment climate that abides by the law, which they don't, and provides certainty to investors and our workers. And that's going to be good for the country. It's going to be good for Alaska. It's going to be good for the environment. To the governor's point, we have the highest standards in the world. So the point of some investors and companies getting nervous, I would agree it's out there, but it's purposeful to try to drive investment out of our state, and that's why we're all here. We think it's wrong.
Just a quick follow. If that were true, why do we have 66 sanctions against us? If nobody wants to come here because they don't want to invest here, then the market would take care of it. There'd be no market here in Alaska. There's a lot of people that want to invest in here, but we got some odds stacked against us by our own government that is going overseas again to some of these enemies of America. and convincing them to produce more oil or minerals. So no, it's, I don't know whether, I don't know, I'm not sure what they're
I just,
smoking or drinking.
Governor, if I may want to ask, the Fiscal Responsibility Act, by law, an environmental assessment 1 year, environmental impact statement 2 years max. That's the shot clock. They're taking it as just a recommendation. The Biden-Harris administration is not following the law that Congress wrote and that they signed. They're taking, it's just a recommendation. This is what we're dealing with, and this is what Alaska is dealing with, and Minnesota and other states.
Our next go to Jeff Landfield with the Alaska Landmine.
Hello, Jeff Landfill. Are you guys driving or flying to the slope?
Bicycle. No, I'm
Flying.
kidding.
I asked because a few weeks ago I drove up the Haul Road with Senator Rob Myers, and I think most Alaskans agree that all this stuff needs to happen. But the Haul Road's real screwed up. It took us 16 hours to go 500 miles. There was several stops. I mean, the road was washed out. We were going 10 miles an hour certain places, and I know it's been neglected for about a decade. So, I mean, is there a plan to upgrade the Haul Road? Because they're taking a lot of willow and thick infrastructure up there, and I mean, you should drive the Haul Road. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, no, Jeff, it's a gravel road. We constantly work on it. There's a couple ice wedge issues that we're dealing with as well, but it needs constant maintenance because it is a gravel road. We've had a lot of rain here this summer and on the slope as well, and so no, we constantly are upgrading our roads. We're constantly working on our roads, and we'll continue to do so and make sure that these roads are passable and fit for residential and commercial traffic.
Next we have Alex Marban with the Anchorage Daily News.
Yeah, just kind of a detailed question for Dan Sullivan. Just wondering, this promise from Tracy Stone Manning, is it in writing, or can you tell me more about who it was made to and when it was
Yeah, it was definitely made to the DNR commissioner. More than once, I think I put that in the letter, and we double-checked with him before I sent that letter. And then in a hearing, I think just in mid-June, Senator Murkowski really pressed her on this. And she said, well, we have, quote, too much on our plate. That was the new quote, okay? Too much on our plate, even though this was a commitment to include it in that regional management plan. So when all that was happening, Alex, and you know how these groups work together, right around the same time, literally I think within a week, you had this petition filed. And look, I've dealt with Tracy Stone Manning a ton. I'm not a fan of hers. I don't think there was any way in hell she should have been confirmed as a BLM director, given her background. Go read about it. It's really remarkable. She was a tree spiker, right? Put in spikes in trees to kill loggers and people who are, putting their logs through sawmills. That's her background, right? And she is not a friend of Alaska's, and she comes up here and she won't meet with me. She won't meet with the governor. She won't meet with our team. I'm very, very, very suspicious that right around the time she decided to say, too much on our plate, these groups that she's been allied with have petitioned Department of Interior to start the EIS process to dismantle TAPs. Now, I know most Alaskans are like, oh, come on, that's crazy. This is crazy, right? I mean, come on, guys. We can't be naive. They will try to do that. And I'm nervous about it. So I'm asking her in a very detailed manner, who have you been talking to? And why did you really? Is it really because you got too much on your plate, or did someone get to you? And I'm pretty sure someone got to her, and we're going to find out.
We have a question from the Fairbanks Daily News Miner for Senator Sullivan. This is from Jack Barnwell. Where does the provision to require Ambler Road requirement in the NDAA stand?
Great question. So again, the background on the Ambler Road is that, and this is again the frustration. Go look at the 1980 ANILCA law. Go read the provisions that Ted Stevens put in ANILCA on the Ambler Road. They are about as directive to Congress as possible. The Secretary shall issue this right away. There shall be no EIS, and there shall be no judicial review. That was Senator Stevens on that road in that law. By the way, speaking of Tracy Stone Manning, I did have a meeting with her. I read her that provision, and I said, do you think you have any discretion whatsoever to deny issuing a right-of-way for this, given that that's what ANILCA tells you to do? And she said, yes, Senator, I think I have discretion. There you go, lawlessness. So, end of the Obama administration, throughout the Trump administration, the professional staff, okay, the professional staff at Department of Interior did a very detailed, massive EIS, incredible consultation throughout our state, and they issued the right-of-way, the record of decision. So that was done. It was done. Okay, and Biden comes out, Tracy Stone Manning leading the charge, and they say they're going to take a look at it again. There wasn't enough, quote, consultation, and then they just reversed it 3 months ago. So in the National Defense Authorization Act, I sit on the Armed Services Committee. A lot of that bill this year, that's the bill, sets the top line and the policy for our Department of Defense, had a bunch of provisions, bipartisan provisions, in that bill dealing with critical minerals. Why? Because we're so dependent on China. And that's really bad for our national security. So there were several amendments in that bill that passed in a bipartisan way that will bolster America's ability to produce critical minerals that will be good for our national defense. So I put a provision in saying that we're going to approve one or two of the rights-of-way that are in the EIS, to approve them. And the Secretary of Interior has 30 days after the enactment of the NDAA to do that. By the way, that amendment of mine, remember, the Senate's controlled by Democrats, it passed 20-5. 20-5 to get the Ambler Road done. So I've talked to the chairman of the Natural Resources Committee in the House. He is very supportive of this, so we're going to go to conference with the House NDAA bill and the Senate NDAA bill, and we're going to try really hard to keep that in there. Now, is it going to be a challenge? Hell yeah, because the White House and Chuck Schumer fought my amendment like hell in the NDAA markup. They were totally against it. Calling Democratic senators, don't you support the Sullivan Amendment? And a lot of them, to their credit, said, hey guys, and what, be more dependent on China? I am going to support the Sullivan Amendment. So we think we have a good opportunity to do it. It's going to take, we're going to have to push the White House back and Schumer back, but we got strong support in the House for this. And I got the vast majority of the senators on the Armed Services Committee to support my amendment, and so we're going to work really, really hard to make sure it's in the final bill that will be good for America's military and good for our national security.
Governor, turn it back to you.
So before I close, I'm going to have Representative Tiffany from Wisconsin come up, say a few words, and then we'll make sure that we have an opportunity for Representative Russ Fulcher out of Idaho to come up and say a few words too before we close out.
Yeah, thank you so much, Governor. It's great to be in your state here in Alaska. And there's one primary reason that I'm here in Alaska this week, and that's the hearing that we had a number of months ago when the Slopers came to Washington, D.C. and told their story. When they told the story of the gentleman that took a harpoon through his hand, and if there would have not been a medical facility, in part paid for by oil and gas, and a hospital down here that he could fly to and get immediate care, he probably would not have made it. I want to go up there and see those people, because this administration, the Biden-Harris administration, is not consulting with the tribal entities here in Alaska. They are only doing it when it is convenient. They are lecturing us regularly about how, oh gosh, we have to have consultation with tribal nations around the country. Why aren't they doing it in Alaska? Why are they not up here consulting as they should? That is the record of the Biden-Harris administration. Number two, we are in a battle for who's going to win the 21st century. Is it China, communist China, or is it America? We saw what happened in the 20th century. We left the greatest country in the history of mankind as we left the 20th century, America. We won the 20th century. It is being decided right now with decisions just like this. Just like a natural gas plant that's being killed in my district in Superior, Wisconsin. A permit that will not be issued by our governor for Line 5 up in northern Wisconsin that feeds much of the upper Midwest. Take a good look at it. Those kind of decisions are what are going to decide whether this is going to be an American century. Finally, I cannot sit down here until commenting about Don Young, legend here in Alaska. Don Young took care of people, took care of the Alaskan people when he was out in Washington, D.C. And I hope Alaskans remember this as we go to November. Because I've seen it when I served in the legislature in Madison, and now as I serve in Washington, D.C. You have people that talk a good game when they're at home. But how do they vote when they're in Washington, D.C.? Are they looking out for your interests? I hope Alaskans are looking out for your interests. Thank you for having me here.
Representative Fulcher, come on up.
Thank you. Russ Fulcher from Idaho. And if you haven't noticed, there's a certain theme here today. It's one that is very, very evident. And that is that Alaska has the solutions that not just impact the Alaskan economy, but the American economy. I see a lot of similarities in my home state of Idaho. First of all, two fabulous states with resources under our feet with great wealth that are largely untapped because of federal regulations. You know, we both have the majority of the land mass in Idaho and Alaska that is controlled by the federal government. So in many ways, they function as a landlord, and these restrictions have just been suffocating. $35 trillion in debt. That's the national debt level, $35 trillion. And we are forced to purchase from our enemies. That's where we're getting a lot of our energy, when the wealth is right under our feet. And so whoever controls our resources ultimately controls our destiny. Folks, we have it. We've got it right here. You have an absolutely incredible state. I want to thank the governor, Senator Sullivan, for their work, for understanding the truth, working with us, quite frankly, giving us information that we don't get through federal channels. But the wealth is under our feet, and your great state of Alaska can harvest what we need more responsibly than any other place on the planet. Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
So we're going to wrap it up, but I want to thank these gentlemen for coming up. And this is just representative of a number of folks in Washington that support Alaska and support the idea of America being strong for itself and for its people. We're going to need oil. Let's do it in America. Let's do it in Alaska. We're going to need minerals. We're going to need timber, any and all resources. We are blessed as a nation. We're blessed as a state. We're the envy of the world in terms of our resources. But to the question, people don't want to invest because it's not worth it. People don't want to invest in Alaska and other parts of the United States because it just doesn't work. It's not true. This is a battle with our own federal government. It has been for a long time. Ted Stevens battled it. Don Young has battled it. Governors have battled it. This idea that Alaska is too beautiful, too precious to be both a state that can help take care of its people and this country and a beautiful place. You know, in ONILCA, there was a section often referred to as the No More Clause. 66 sanctions against Alaska, locking up land. 66 sanctions against Alaska, eliminating jobs, eliminating wealth, eliminating opportunities. You've got a whole generation of young people in this country that are going to be saddled with a $35 trillion debt. Well, how do we stop it? How do we get out of that? We have it, as was mentioned, under our feet. The ability to produce, create brand new wealth here in America as opposed to China, as opposed to Iran. You know, God forbid we may be staring at an increased conflict in the Middle East. Where does Hezbollah get its missiles from? They have a missile factory in Lebanon? They get their money from Iran. Where do the Houthis get their money from and their missiles? From Iran. I mean, you have to be a fool to believe that Iran does not have nefarious ideas regarding the United States and its allies. But the answers are here. They're right in front of us. They're all over the place. And for Alaska, unlike other states, any play, any oil play, any mining play, any timber play is huge for Alaska, given our small population. California could lose a $1 billion play or project, but for Alaska, it's unbelievably tremendous. And so I don't think we're going to get through this administration. That's why many of us just can't wait till November 5th and are hoping for the best. But Alaska, just like America, was about a dream. Our motto is north of the future. It's not give up. And so, again, sometimes when we feel that we're on our own and our senators are fighting hard for us, it's good to know that we've got other congressmen across this country that share our values, that America can be an amazing place, that there is a future for our young people, our kids and grandkids. But we have to make decisions. We aren't running out of oil. We aren't running out of minerals. We aren't running out of timber. We're just running out of good policies coming out of Washington. And I'm just so glad and proud of these guys behind me that we may be able to hang on, and hopefully there's some sunshine here after the elections. But lots at stake here. So anyway, thank you for being here. We're going to be going to this the slope tomorrow, and we're looking forward to more conversations and working together. So thank you very much, everybody.
And there you heard it, Senator Dan Sullivan, Governor Mike Dunleavy, and a number of congressional members from the lower 48 coming up and talking about oil and gas production in Alaska. Of course, we will have more tonight at 4, 5, 6, and 10, so don't forget to join us on Alaska's News Source.